Content here, also known as Flare. Today we're doing another What If. What if Deku was an assassin? Part 1. I'm probably going to do one part. This is going to be a movie, or I'll split it into two parts. Let's see how it goes. So we're going to start off how the normal anime started. Deku was weak and frail. He actually had nothing to his name, and everybody hated him because he had no quirk. His his mom was the only person that he actually had that he can turn to and talk to, but it kind of made him sad. He was bullied by Bakugo relentlessly, and tragedy struck one day when Deku was 8. A villain attack happened. Deku was going home and he saw his house up in flames. He goes to run in there as he sees heroes blocking his way as Deku fights through the heroes to get into his house. He sees his mom. He asks his mom if she's okay, but no answer. He goes to carry his mother out of the burning building as wood planks fall down on top of Deku, but Deku fights through it. Deku dodges the wooden plank, keeps running, and ends up running out the house or the apartment, and ends up jumping out of a window. Deku takes a lot of damage as he gets back up, and while his mom is on his back, he says, "Why didn't you save her?" As the heroes looked at Deku and they said, "We didn't know if there was anyone who was alive in there. We're sorry, kid." Deku starts to harbor a little bit of hatred for the heroes for doing nothing. He realizes that the society is terrible, it's flawed. His dream to become a hero was slowly starting to fade away because of the fact that they didn't even save his mother. They didn't even take any measures to see if there was anyone in the building. There might have been many people that lost their lives because of the hero's negligence, and it pissed off Deku. Deku passes out from his injuries and is taken to the hospital. The doctor walks in with a grim expression on his face as he says, "Hello, Zuko. I'm sorry to inform you, but your mother is dead." Deku's eyes widen and he says, "What happened to her?" And the doctors explain that her injuries were far too great. They were too severe, they couldn't do anything about it. If she was saved a little bit sooner, she could have made it out. Anger started to well into the boy. Deku's started to shake uncontrollably as stuff in the room started floating. Everything. And Deku was crying while he was shaking as the doctor tells him to calm down. It's okay. As everything in the room falls down, as Deku's like, "I can't do this. What's going on?" And the doctor says, "So, young Izuku, do you have a quirk by chance? What is your quirk? You're able to lift things? Do you have telekinesis or something?" And Deku says, "I don't have a quirk. This shouldn't happen." And the doctor says, "I see. Well, well, there's somebody who's here to see you." And Mitsuki walks into the door saying, "I'm so sorry for your loss, Izuku. And Inko always told me that if she ever passed, that I would take you under my care with my husband and Bakugo." Deku's eyes widened as he realized he's gonna be in the same house as Bakugo, the kid that bullies him. Deku gives off a weak smile and says thank you. And the next day they go. Mitsuki tells Bakugo everything as Bakugo doesn't really care and goes off into his room. Mitsuki shows Deku his room, and that's when the day ends. He goes to sleep. He doesn't even eat. And the next day, Deku goes to school as normal. He's exhausted. He's exhausted mentally. His injuries are fully healed, and he felt empty. He didn't have his mother, the only person that he had to talk to about his problems with Bakugo. Deku goes into school and puts his head down. Bakugo goes up to him saying, "Nerd, meet me at the back of the school at the end of class." Deku's kind of nervous, and at the end of the day, Deku goes towards where Bakugo told him to meet. And Bakugo and his goons were there. He says, "I don't give a damn that your mother is dead. Maybe you should go join her in the afterlife. You could, because you don't have a quirk, you can just take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a quirk in your next life." Deku gets super angry and punches Bakugo in the face. As Bakugo spits up a little bit of blood, and he says, "That was a good punch. I'm gonna show you mine." As he shows off his explosions. And and Bakugo and his goons beat him up. Worse than usual. His Bakugo, while he walked away, told Deku, "Remember my words, idiot." And Deku gritted his teeth as everything around him started to lift up. The big things, the small things. And Deku looked at Bakugo with hatred in his eyes as Bakugo was walking away. And he heard all the stuff being lifted up. Deku throws all of that stuff that he was holding up into the air at Bakugo. And Bakugo and his goons barely dodge. Deku, however, passes out from his injuries and overusage. Bakugo decides to run away, thinking he might have killed Deku. And Deku wakes up an hour later. Instead of going home, he walks and walks. He starts walking throughout the city with no goal, nowhere. He doesn't want to go to see Mitsuki. He just wants to go and walk. He wants to walk around the city. He hears screaming from a lady saying, "Help me, help me. Please, anyone." As thieves go up with their knives, going up to the lady saying, "You should keep your mouth shut. You're coming with us. I don't care how. I don't care if we have to do it by force." One of their hands turns into complete fire as he says, "You can come with me willingly, or I'll have to force you." Deku rushes in there and punches the guy who had his fist on fire as he says, "You're not taking her anywhere." He reacted on instinct as one of the others thieves ran at Deku. Deku, in a panic, lifted up something, barely having any control over his quirk. He lifted something up and blocked the blow as he punched the other villain. He didn't do any damage because his body's frail and weak. So Deku ran over to where the lady was, saying, "Are you alright?" He says, "I'm okay." He asks, "What's your quirk and what's your name?" She says, "My name is Momo Yagorozu." "What's your quirk?" She says, "My quirk is creation. I can create things if I know how to make it." And Deku said, "Can you make me a weapon?" Any weapon would do. She makes Deku a sword because it's the first thing she can think of. And Deku holds it in his hand. He says, "I don't know how to use this." As Deku says, "I'll handle this from here. Use me as cover and escape." The villain with his fire ran at Deku and threw a fire blast. Deku instinctively put his hand up and the fire went nowhere. It just went up into the air. It flew away. Deku said, What's this?" As he starts slashing everywhere with his sword. Because he doesn't really know how to use it. He's about to get hit by one of the bandits with a knife. As instinctively, he pushes his hand out. And pushes the enemy away. Knocking him out on the wall. Deku looks at Momo and tells her to run. Deku jumps right at the fire villain and his last bandit. He slashes at the bandit and slices his arm off as he screams in pain, and Deku kicks him to the ground. Not with a lot of strength, but he does it. He's fatigued as the fire villain punches Deku in the face into the wall. Deku's about to pass out. He's starting to black out as the villain is getting ready to finish him off as he realizes everything that's went on in his life. Getting his last bit of courage, he stands back up and he says, "Not today." As he lifts up the villain into the air. Very high, in fact. Makes him go flying into the air. And he won't stop. And then Deku let go of his telekinesis. As the man started plummeting to the ground. And splat. He went right on the floor. Deku coughs up blood as he goes and he passes out. Deku wakes up in a limo. And Momo's next to him. She says, "Are you okay?" And Deku says, "I'm alright. I just passed out." And she says, "It's okay. It's alright. Thank you for saving my life. I'm very grateful." As she gives Deku, well, her family gives Deku some money. And Deku's let out of the car. Deku thanks them as he continues walking. And he decides it's a long day. He wipes the blood off of that he felt on his cheek and started walking home. As soon as he got home, he was rushed by Mitsuki, who was worried about Deku, that he might have went missing. Deku said, I'm okay. I just wanted to walk a little bit, then I got lost." Mitsuki said, "Don't worry me like that." And Deku says, "I'm sorry, I just got lost." She's like, "I understand that, but I don't want to have to set down a curfew for you. Don't come back too late again." Deku says okay, as he goes to bed. After eating Mitsuki's dinner, of course. And he smiled. after saving a life, but he couldn't stop thinking about the fact that he took a life. But he took, he just kept thinking he took a life. Deku goes up to Mitsuki and says, I have a question. I I just want to know. And Mitsuki says, sure, what is it? I want to be signed up for martial arts. And Mitsuki was like, oh, of course, Izuku. I want to be able to defend myself. And Mitsuki was like, yeah, of course. I'll sign you up for martial arts right away. Deku was super excited. As the next few days went on, Bakugo's bullying wouldn't stop, and Mitsuki picked up Deku from school and said, well, today's your first day. As a year would pass, Deku actually learned martial arts. He's almost has full mastery, and it's come to the point where his teacher said, you're progressing very far. So you've progressed far enough so that we can teach you how to use a weapon. Here's your choices. You can learn how to use a sword, a bow staff, some nunchucks, or, my favorite, daggers. Deku says, I want to learn how to use daggers. The teacher says, okay. Well, we'll start tomorrow. Deku's training with the daggers start. As Deku at first did not know how to use it, but after a few weeks and months of training, he actually mastered how to use the daggers. He was proud of himself, because this is one of his biggest milestones ever. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly happy, and he said, nothing can take this away from me. Then, tragedy struck. Deku was 10, walking home from another day of school. His Bakugo was done with Izuku. He did not want him in his house anymore. So Bakugo felt like he can do the one thing that he knew he could have done a long time ago. Bakugo gets home before Deku, and acting like Deku beat up Bakugo. Bad. He had bruises over his face. He was bleeding, and Mitsuki looked angry at Deku, saying, why would you do this to my son? We took care of you, and this is how you repay us? Deku was like, I didn't do anything. It's like, I should never have picked you up from that hospital. It was a mistake. And Mitsuki says, get your stuff and leave. I don't want to see your face anymore. But Deku was like, what? And Mitsuki was like, did I stutter? Get your stuff and leave my house. Deku started to cry, knowing what Bakugo did was a lie. He was angry. He was betrayed by Bakugo. Bakugo bullied him, of course, but Bakugo never took it this far. He never lied to Mitsuki that Deku beat him up. It was believable because Deku took martial arts, but still, Bakugo bullied him his whole life, and he's being tortured. Deku leaves angry with all of his stuff. He put it all in a backpack and walked out. Deku is like, what am I gonna do? I don't want to go to an orphanage. What should I do? He consults his teacher for advice, as his teacher says, you're in a predicament, my boy. I can't, there's not a lot of things I can tell you to do. How about this? I'll buy you out an apartment. You're gonna have to work for your money. You're gonna have to find something that can bring you money. I'll buy you an apartment that you can stay in. I can't let my student go to an orphanage. I know you're responsible for your age. You're smart. You'll be able to find a way to get a job and work. And all you need to do is know that you're okay. I'll support you no matter what. And I believe that you did not beat up young Bakugo. Because I know you. Deku smiles and thanks his master as he says, Thank you. Thank you, Sensei. In a few hours, Deku goes into his apartment as his sensei bought out the first 2 months of rent. Deku didn't know what to do. Didn't know how to find work. He didn't know how to live his life like this. He didn't. He felt trapped. He didn't know how he can escape this prison of a life that he's living. First, his mom dies. Then he moves in with Mitsuki. He gets bullied by Bakugo even more. And now Mitsuki kicks him out just because she believes his stupid son. Deku realizes, wait a minute. There's not a lot of work I can take. I do have some money from Yagorozu I still have. Still enough money that I really would hate to do this. But I'm not going to become a villain. Well, not like that. I won't become a villain. I'll become an assassin. I do have the skills to do that. They make great money. It's just, I'm not sure how well I'll be able to do. Deku buys like an outfit that he can wear. A mask that covers his face. And black robes. Deku, in those years, he's mastered his telekinesis. His telekinesis is very strong. It's like way stronger than his mother's quirk. Deku begins to fly, looking around, putting down posters in places that mostly villains would go. He marked this out for weeks, realizing that villain organizations are everywhere, so he put down posters saying that he would be able to assassinate people. Anyone. Because he realized that his first murder wasn't that bad. Deku would start to become a sensation. His first victim, was a really rich man. He lived in a very big mansion, and he flaunts his money around. And people are tired of it. And they want him gone. They want him to disappear off the face of the earth. And Deku, he got his first contract. He gets up from his seat after talking to the person, and he says, well, I'll bring you his head. As Deku walks out, he goes towards the mansion and its details, but he doesn't walk because he doesn't have a need for walking. Because of his telekinesis, he can lift himself up and propel him like flying. So Deku flies towards the mansion and reaches it. Deku gets there as he continues to walk. He walks into the mansion as the bodyguards look at Deku and they realize he's an intruder. They pull out their guns and get ready to shoot as Deku puts his hand up and stops all their bullets from even firing as he crushes their guns and lifts them up into the air. And with a quick slash, he slits their throat with his daggers. Deku continued to walk. The alarms of the mansion started to sound, and Deku started to speed up. He ended up slaughtering every bodyguard that was there until he got to the rich guy's room. And the pro hero that guards him was there after he got the call that he needed help. The man tells him to stop where you are and leave, or else he will have to kill him. He's like, that's not really hero-like for you to kill, isn't it? He's like, well, I'm not that type of hero. And it's not going to be on my record anyways. The guy jumps at Deku. He has an enhancement quirk. Deku jumps back and uses his telekinesis to push him back away from him. He starts to punch Deku in the face because he's too quick for Deku to react. He gets punched and thrown across the room as he stops himself with his telekinesis. As the man jumps back at Deku, Deku pushes him away again and pulls him back in before he can land. As he uses his dagger and tries to slit his throat, but he dodges a little bit and gets his arm cut. Deku goes for another slash with his other dagger, but misses. The guy punches Deku in the stomach, sending him flying back. Deku gets enraged as he realizes he's losing. The guy jumps back at Deku and gets ready to end the fight with a punch to the face. As Deku opens his eyes, as his fist turns into fire and he punches the villain in the face. Deku's like, what happened? What happened to my fist? Is this my quirk? Am I able to turn as he remembers the villain that he fought, that he killed, with his telekinesis lifting him up into the air and dropping him. It was that villain's quirk. He can turn his fists on fire. Now this fight looked a little bit more interesting. Deku jumps right at the villain, using his fire to propel him forward as he punches the villain and punches the hero into the face, sending him flying back. Deku grabs his dagger again as he runs back at the hero. The hero's kind of stunned as he gets back into footing and dodges the hit. Deku uses his telekinesis to push him in. As he gets ready to slit his throat, he gets punched in the face. Deku, he's almost knocked out by the punch, as he ends up slicing his chest. It doesn't kill him, but it damages him as he starts to bleed. Deku starts to breathe heavily, knowing that he is kind of outmatched here. The rich guy starts to talk down to him as he says, "You can work for me and survive. You can just work for me. I can see you're strong and capable. You'd be a good bodyguard." Deku, he says, "No, I have a contract to fulfill." His eyes open again as he's about to get punched in the face again. As he pushes the guy in, lifts him up into the air, and crushes his fist. As blood splatters everywhere from the hero's death, Deku, he takes a deep, heavy breath in and out. He keeps breathing in and out. Because whenever he crushes someone's skull with his quirk or with telekinesis, he just feels a heavy drawback. The quirk, telekinesis, has a drawback to it. He could have ended the fight earlier, but he was worried about this, as he felt this very bad strain in his chest. breathing in and out as the rich guy jumped at him with the knife. Deku, using his telekinesis, would slam him into a wall as Deku grabbed out his knife. While holding his chest, he cut the rich guy's head off. He grabs the rich guy's head as he walks back, as he flies back to where they were meant to meet. The guy is astonished that Deku did it that quick. The guy knew that that guy had bodyguards and that hero. So that means Deku must have... He did it. The next day on the news, you can see that the hero and that rich man was murdered. No sign or trace of the man who did it. Now Deku's name started to spread like wildfire to the villains. Learning that Deku is strong and he's a capable assassin. Deku, of course, got paid for what he did, and he was able to live the high life for a day. It was a lot of money for him. He was able to buy a lot of food, and he would be able to pay like 6 months worth of rent with that money that he got. But Deku shakes his head off as he says, "Okay, well, I have to do another day. I have to work as an assassin at night, and during the day, I'll be a normal person. Maybe I'll work a job when I get older. I'll work a regular job, so I'll look like a normal person." Deku, he gets up as he starts to move around, and he gets tired of being in his house. So he goes out for a walk, excited. And then he realizes he'll have to go to school, doesn't he? He'll ask his sensei to transfer him to a new school because he doesn't feel like dealing with Bakugo's attitude. And he never wants to be near Bakugo again. He wants his revenge, but he doesn't want it yet. Deku, however, gets bad news from his sensei. His sensei was getting older, and he was sick. And his sensei wasn't going to live long. He says, "I probably got a good 3 years left in me. I'm going to stay alive as long as I can, but my teaching days are over. Could you, by chance, help run the sensei while I'm taking a little bit of a break? Run the dojo. Train some people. You are my number one ever student. Able to even fight me." Deku smiles and he says, "Of course I will. But I have a question. Can you sign me up to a different school?" The dojo, the sensei, his master looked at him and he said, "Of course. Let me just set that all up." His sensei said, "You start tomorrow." And Deku smiled and said, "Of course." That night, Deku started to fly around the city as he gets a call telling him to meet up somewhere, that they have a job for him. They need him to take down a whole villain organization. He'd be paid very well, but he needs to take down a whole villain organization. Every last member must die. Deku said, "Okay." As he gets the coordinates to where he needs to go, he looks at the building. He smiles as he says, "Another day's work." And that's where I'm going to leave off this video. I'm not sure if how many of y'all liked it. If you want a part two, I don't care. Just comment down below if you want a part two or not. If this was a bad series, I'm probably gonna scrap it, but I think I did pretty good. Tell me how you felt about it. Leave and I'll see y'all later. Have a nice day. See ya. Peace.